you California State Fair goers. Welcome to the first ever cannabis exhibition at the California State Fair. And we've got someone very special to thank for this, and his name is Brian Applegarth. He put this whole thing together with his team. Let's hear some applause for Brian. Woohoo! We have utter gratitude to his team who've been working on this for about 3 years now. And just look what they've done. This museum quality exhibition, bringing cannabis out of the darkness into the light, reaching out to all of these other people. And my favorite part of it, education, education, education. You could learn anything you want about the cannabis industry in this building right here. You can meet anybody you need to meet. Make all those connections you need to make right here. So we are very, very grateful to Brian and his crew for doing this.
Woo woo!
So my name is Wendy Reed, and this is my very new and dear friend, Suzi.
Hello.
And we're here today. We're going to talk a little bit about cannabis and cancer. I know that every single person in this room knows somebody with cancer. And every single person in this room could learn something if they wandered on down and listened to us chat.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, I'm going to start off by telling us a little bit about cancer and how cannabis can help, and then I'm going to hand things off to Suzi because she has a really amazing story, her own story of how she's been using cannabis for cancer. But I just wanted to start off a little bit talking about what cancer is so we can understand how cannabis gets in there and takes care of it. So as a lot of us know, we have our healthy cells will frequently pick up a mutation due to environmental toxins, due to so many things. It's not your fault. Let go of that right now. There's so many things working towards, in cancer's favor right now. So these mutations will come in, and our system is designed they send in a team of chemicals and they correct the mutations, and off the cell goes and it's healthy again. But sometimes they can't correct the mutation, and in that case, instead of going back into the system, that cell actually gets programmed to commit a little hara-kiri, and we get some cellular suicide. If that cell is damaged and cannot be repaired by your system, then it commits something called apoptosis, which means cell suicide. It's like, I'm out of here. You don't need me. So apoptosis is continually happening in your body as cells are damaged. It's a cleanup crew. It's the way things happen. But sometimes when your system gets overwhelmed, and it can be your immune system or your whole being, because let's say there's a lot of stuff going on out in the world right there that can be overwhelming. And if you're getting overwhelmed, and those little fix-it guys, they can't keep up with the mutations, and all of a sudden the mutations are happening in the genes that control cell division and the genes that control apoptosis, and these mutations can accumulate in also the genes, like we have tumor suppressor genes, so that's part of the cleanup crew and the fix-it crew. So when the mutations start building up in these genes, and these growth promoting genes, they go into hyperactive. So they've got cancerous mutations within them, and as they continue to divide very, very rapidly, they're carrying the mutations along, and you're getting more and more and more cells that are invaded with cancer cells. Those cells are still part of the system. They're still you, even though they have mutations inside of them. So your immune system doesn't always recognize them and doesn't always find them and kill them or tell them to commit apoptosis. And that's another sneaky way that cancer gets embedded in the body. So when a bunch of these cells divide rapidly and form a growth, then they do another sneaky thing, and they form their own blood vessels. They're making their own veins and arteries within that growth so that they can mine the nutrients and the sugar right out of your blood, and they can continue their hyperactive division. And that process is called angiogenesis. When that growth forms its own its own vascular system. That process is called angiogenesis, the generation of blood vessels. So that's another way that cancer gets in there, and still that tumor can be hiding from the immune system. So tumors, once they have that vascular system, they start secreting enzymes called proteases that break down the healthy tissues around the tumor or around the cancer cells, and so that the tumor can start to spread. So it's weakening the tissues around the cells so that the tumor can easily push its way into the rest of your system. And that can lead to what we call metastasis, because one of the things that the proteases break down is the mortar between the cells that hold the cells together. And once that mortar kind of breaks down the cellular tissues, then those cancer cells can hit the slipstream. They can slide out of the tumor, they can get into the into the vascular system, and they can also get into the lymph system, and they're surfing the waves, right? And they're looking for a new home, and out they go, and that's called metastasis. And I just want to mention one more thing that's important to understand is there's two ways a cell can die in your body. One is apoptosis, which we just talked about. The other one is necrosis. Necrosis, which means death, is when a cell receives blunt trauma, or it receives chemical trauma, or, when it experiences trauma, and the cell basically just explodes, right? And when it explodes, it's releasing all of the toxins that are in it into your blood system, into your lymph system, and that's called necrosis. So when you're receiving chemotherapy or radiation, that's necrosis. So the chemotherapy and the radiation are blunt trauma to all of your fast-growing cells. The chemotherapy specifically targets your fast-dividing cells and kills all of them, not just the cancer cells, as we know, not just the cancer cells. It goes in there and kills all the cells, and then you have to try to recover later. Well, so here we come with cannabis as one of the most amazing cancer therapies I've witnessed. I've been a holistic healer in California for 20 years with a family practice. And when I started working with cannabis for cancer, the results were just amazing. So I'm going to back right up with a few facts and figures. Since 1975, we have known that THC is anti-tumor. So a big article came out in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute that said, hey, if we put THC in a test tube with cancer cells, it's killing the cancer cells, right? So that was immediately covered up. Like the story was released, and then it just disappeared off the face of the earth, thanks to our censorship and propaganda. Although, on an aside, for those of you who know Rick Simpson, he actually heard that article or heard it on the radio way back when and led him on his path of creating amazing cancer medicines. We may get to that later. So we've known that since then. We also know that cannabis prevents angiogenesis, and if a vascular system has already been built up in a tumor, the cannabis will kill that vascular system and starve the tumor, and we have the potential for the tumor to shrink down to absolutely nothing. And this can be a tumor anywhere in the body, even the brain, because our beloved cannabis crosses the blood-brain barrier. So we have had excellent results with using cannabis for brain cancer, and I might get to a few stories of that later. Very important to know, though. So we have these cancer cells, and they are not doing apoptosis, even though they're mutated. Well, cancer goes in there and cannabis goes in there and reprograms the cells and then they start committing apoptosis. So another way that it's killing the cancer cells in a gentle way. So the cells are killing themselves. They're not harming any cells around them, and they're just getting reabsorbed and excreted by your system. So cannabis can help with that. Cannabis definitely inhibits the spread of cancer or metastasis. One of the ways it does that is cancer is what we call tissue protective. So even if you have a small tumor formed, cannabis is going to go in and protect the tissues around that tumor. So when it secretes those enzymes, it won't soften those tissues or destroy the tissues. So it prevents the cancer from being able to slip into the slipstream and head its way out. So this is one reason that makes cannabis an excellent accompaniment to chemotherapy and/or radiation. So if you're doing chemo and radiation, the cannabis that you're using is going to be protecting your other tissues and your other cells and trying to keep the chemotherapy from killing the healthy cells. It's very good at that. And then I think most of you in here have already heard of the endocannabinoid system. So we have an inner system within us. It's very similar to our nervous system. It produces its own cannabinoids, and these cannabinoids moderate every single system of your body at the cellular level. So it modulates, it goes in, the cannabis goes into the cells and will tell the cell to turn up a function or turn down a function, or, whoa, you made way too much of that protein, make some of that protein. And in that way, it communicates with the cells throughout every part of your body. Cannabis has the same ability, so that's why it works so well for us. We already have a system to receive the medicine. The plant and human beings and animals who also have endocannabinoid systems, that plant co-evolved with us, right? It co-evolved with animals, so it started producing chemicals that animals need to be healthy, right? So there's a lot of intelligence going on in there, a lot of plant intelligence happening there. These plants are eons old, and they are so much more intelligent than we are. It's unbelievable. So we have to pay attention to the interaction between these plants and our systems because we can learn from it. They're teaching us what's going on. Okay, off my soapbox. So we have the most cannabis receptors in our body in our immune system, on our B lymphocytes. So cannabis is designed to boost your immune system, to moderate your immune system. It prevents it from going into hyperimmunity, like some of us have heard about, COVID and the inflammation storms. So cannabis prevents us from going that way. It prevents us from losing our immunity ability. It keeps the immune system balanced and strong, which is very important because if you have cancer, it's probably because your immune system's a little run down. One of the last ways I wanted to talk about cannabis helping with cancer, and this is specifically CBD, although that's what the scientists say. As an herbalist, and as many of you know, whole plant medicine is exponentially more powerful than choosing one of the 160 chemicals in cannabis and applying it. Whole plant medicine is even more powerful if you're combining plants. There's hundreds of thousands of medicinal herbs out there. A lot of them work really well with cannabis. They like to work together. Herbs work better in formula, so we have to pay attention to that. However, the science picked out CBD, and what CBD can do is it can go in and turn off something called the ID1 gene. The ID1 gene is something that's turned on when you're a fetus because it helps cells differentiate. So when you're a fetus, there's a couple of little cells, and then they divide, and there's a couple more cells, and on and on. But pretty soon, we need to start producing some heart cells or some muscle cells or some hair cells, and that's called differentiation. The cells are differentiating their role in the body that they play. By the time the fetus is born, the baby has every single cell in it that it needs for the rest of its life, and those same kinds of cells are just going to divide. So the ID1 gene turns off when you're born. You don't need cells taking on different roles after you're born. So it turns this off. In cancer, for some reason, and specifically breast cancer, but other cancers, this ID1 gene will get turned back on. And when it gets turned back on, it starts your cells differentiating and becoming cancer cells and becoming other kinds of harmful cells. And we don't want that to happen. Cannabis goes in, turns that gene back off. Okay, so that's another way that cannabis, specifically whole plant medicine, can help us with the cannabis. Okay, just a few more things, and we're going to just listen to Suzi's story. I just like to read this statement. It's a very important statement from the National Cancer Institute. It was published in March of 2011. Cannabinoids may cause anti-tumor effects by various mechanisms, including induction of cell death, inhibition of cell growth, and inhibition of tumor angiogenesis and metastasis. Cannabinoids appear to kill tumor cells, but do not affect their non-transformed counterparts and may even protect them from cell death. The potential benefits of medicinal cannabis for people living with cancer, including antiemetic effects, appetite stimulation, pain relief, and improved sleep. In the practice of integrative oncology, the healthcare provider may recommend medicinal cannabis not only for symptom management, but also for its possible direct anti-tumor effect. So here from 2011, we've had this from the National Cancer Institute, but it's going to take all of us to really start to pressure this oncology industry, and it is an industry, to help us research the effects of cannabis in cancer. We need their research. We need to be able to inject THC directly into tumors. We need to be able to do a lot more testing and research in this area. And we need to be the ones choosing the research questions, not the pharmaceutical industries. They are not asking the right questions. They are not funding the right research. And it's up to us to pressure them to do so. So on that note, I would like you to meet my friend Suzi.
Hello.
And Suzi, will you tell us a little bit about when you learned that you had cancer and a little bit of the process that you went through?
Yes, so thank you, Wendy, for really helping to explain. I know that the journey that I've been on, but I'm not a medical professional or in any background understanding how cannabis helped me. But damn, cancer, right? We all know somebody. I walked into my doctor after having run my third marathon to find out that my diagnosis was metastatic. I had cancer in 8 body parts. The options for me were really limited, and it was pretty much go write your will, and here are some ways that will help the quality of your life end. And I couldn't accept that, and reached out to a couple of friends. One of those people is here today, introduced me to a product that allows me to be here today. And I'm, September will be 6 years here on this planet as a result of what Wendy mentions, full spectrum RSO, Rick Simpson oil protocol. I see people nodding. There are people that are familiar with this process. I hope that there are the entire world gets familiar with this process. It kicked my ass. And I had not been familiar with cannabis. I was not a user of cannabis at all. My endocannabinoid system, as Wendy explained, was dehydrated, and it really it sucked up all of the benefits of this Rick Simpson oil. This protocol was given to me along with medical professionals. So I did a protocol along with an oncologist, and 90 days of ramping up this protocol. What I learned is that our endocannabinoid system plateaus. After about 3 days, you can consume as much as you want. It's not going to get you any higher. And about every 12 hours, that resets. The off switch was CBD, and then I'd go back and I'd spend my days on CBD. I'd spend my evenings pretty high. I'll say passed out high. It went over a 90-day period. I increased my dosage, tripled every 3 days. I doubled this dose to a point where I was actually tripling the dose on my last month. I have friends around the room here today that could let you know how they picked me up off my bathroom floor a few times. Might have been passed out more than I ever anticipated, but any chemo that I've had has not been as resourceful, as helpful, and did not cure me, which I can't say that word, did not assist my living in the same way that cannabis did. Again, Wendy explained really well how the full spectrum, and the full spectrum, what that means is that the entire plant is something that you consume, and it was consumed. It wasn't smoked. It was in an edible form that I ended up turning into capsules because it tasted so terrible. And you keep smiling. I feel like you've been through this journey. You're going through it now. It sucks. And I'm grateful for cannabis. I'm grateful for the Cal Fair to expose cannabis to the world in a delicious way. I was definitely grateful for this plant.
Can you
not at the
tell
time.
us what happened after the 90 days?
So 90 days of this plant and falling on the ground high I tried to dialogue everything. I tried to journal it, and you see my journal entries going, I was pretty high and was up to about 2,000 milligrams twice a day. Went to the doctor prior, had all the scans done, did a 90-day protocol, ramping up, being super high. At the end of 90 days, 91st day, went back to the scans. Guys, I had active cancer in one body part, in the liver. Wendy can probably elaborate a little bit more on why that occurs, is because your liver is metabolizing everything, and it pretty much ate all the THC. But I still have cancer, and I still have and I'm still under treatment, but the original sites are calcified. They're still there, and they're protected in the same way that Wendy described how the THC factor came in there, and the endocannabinoid system is keeping me happy and healthy every day. I'm being treated currently with chemo and cannabis, and the side effects of the chemo are also being treated with cannabis in the nausea, the fatigue. I take intravenous chemo. I don't have a port. There are bruises, and your body is traumatized by receiving this needle, and then your body's traumatized by receiving the chemo. CBD helps to calm that down so that you can receive the product better. Your body's calmer. Your state of mind is calmer. We started a business within UCSF that gives hand and foot massages to people using CBD cream so that they can receive their treatment better. And I don't know how to explain how it happened in the same way that Wendy can, but I don't get bruised. My bruise is gone the next day. I don't have the fatigue. If I do get a little fatigued, I smoke a joint. And I'm still here. I don't know how to explain this magic. So I would love to hear if anybody has any questions, and I can elaborate on something in more detail for you.
I'm a lung cancer survivor.
Congratulations.
And I smoke all the time. I love it. I've always done that, though, because I'm an old hippie. But I did the infusion, the Keytruda infusion. It's the newest form.
I didn't hear what product?
Keytruda.
Keytruda.
It's
yes,
an
the
infusion.
Yes, that builds up your immune system.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if it did that, but whatever it did, and smoking, I just had a clear scan.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to see if that's different. I know it doesn't do the harm that chemo does, but have you ever heard of anybody using it with infusion, or is there a difference?
Your question was, have I ever heard of anybody receiving a Keytruda infusion?
Yeah, instead of chemo.
I sit in a room every week
Right.
with patients that are accepting that
Right.
as their method.
Yep.
We all talk about CBD. I line up my CBD products right there on my tray. I have seen people get great results. I've seen a person go from not walking to taking a trip to Italy on Keytruda. I am not being metastatic, as Wendy explained. I will forever have some relationship with chemo because I will forever have my stem cells altered as a result of cancer. So I'm not a candidate for Keytruda, but I'm grateful that it's around and that you're taking it. And I hope that you are consuming that with your THC and your CBD and
You bet.
love it. I'm glad that it's here for you.
Thank you for being here. This is like a miracle for me.
It's been a miracle. I mean,
First
it's
it's legal, then they deliver, and now we're here.
right?
Yay.
Yeah.
And you can get it delivered.
You can have it delivered to
And it's good-
UCSF.
And it's good for you.
And it's health food, right?
Thank
It's
you.
So great. This is the modern medicine, and this is my personal opinion, and this is what medicine was, and they took it away from us. And now we are fighting every single day. We have a farm in Sonoma where we grow organic cannabis outdoor and use some of that for medical research because they need the best.
And I would like to mention one thing we haven't talked about yet is fresh cannabis is extremely anti-cancer as well. So if you're on a farm or you're growing a plant, eating the leaves on a regular basis, chop them up small, put them in your salsas or
in your smoothies.
You probably don't want to heat them up unless you want a psychoactive effect. But if you're eating fresh raw cannabis, there is no psychoactive effect. So you can eat as much of it as you want. And you can put it in your smoothies, et cetera, et cetera. I also, an anecdotal local client of mine was an infant and with inoperable brain cancer. And their parents started putting cannabis juice into the bottle. And after I think 6 months, they went back for a scan, and the brain tumor was gone.
And I had 4 tumors completely exit my body. I mean, they were gone. So has anybody else used it? Does anybody else juice their cannabis? Well, start now. Yeah. You can eat it, you can juice it, and you're not going to have the psychoactive effects, but you are going to help your endocannabinoid system help you continue to live in a most comfortable way you can. You in the back.
What's the best material to juice?
Yeah.
What's the best material to juice?
I've tried them all, and it came down to flavor. It came down to what I really liked. I use the sugar leaves and the fan leaves. I eat the sugar leaves, but I usually will juice the fan leaves. I freeze them, and then I throw them into my morning smoothie every day. They're in my pancakes.
And now I've heard about the male leaves from the male plants.
Yes.
Are those better?
I don't know. I don't know which one is good, is helping on a endocannabinoid level, which is better. I just know flavor.
Yeah, I can say a couple of things. We developed juicing programs up in the Emerald Triangle for a long time where the elders or whoever could come and get juice. Boy, I saw it reverse Alzheimer's disease. I saw it do amazing things. So yes, definitely juice your males if you want to. Cannabis juice, if you're going to juice it straight, is extremely acidic because all of the cannabinoids are attached to acids, and it's very acidic. So when people do want to juice, I encourage them to throw an apple in there, or a carrot, or something else, or
Throw
a
it
little
in
bit
along
of,
with your regular smoothie, whatever
a
else
little bit
you're
of an
having.
oil, yeah. And then what I really recommend is doing what Suzi does, which is putting it in your food, or diluting it in a drink, a smoothie, or something like that, versus juicing it. If you are wanting to juice your cannabis, you want the leaves before the plant has started to pull the chlorophyll back out of them. So you want to make sure they're very green and very fresh. And then soak them in ice water for maybe 5 minutes before you put them in the juicer. You'll get more out of it.
That is rad. And I was freezing mine, not realizing I was helping myself at the same time. How have you guys been? Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Suzi. So first, thank you for being here to tell your story. I'm so glad you're still here to do it. Wendy, thank you for all your work and your research. I do have a story. I am an ovarian cancer survivor.
Yay!
And I discovered cannabis for pain after my surgery. My type of cancer is estrogen modulated.
Mine as well.
Okay, good. So I was hearing about THC THC inducing estrogen, and so it not being good for estrogen modulated types of cancers. Have you heard anything about that?
Oh yeah, it's a big concern, and what that came out of was test tube research. So we have to keep that in mind.
Okay.
And we have to pay attention to it. So she's talking about some research that shows that THC is not good for estrogen-positive cancers. So when I look at those studies, I don't see them using full-spectrum whole plant medicine. So that means that they're not utilizing all the other chemicals in cannabis that probably or could be counteracting that effect.
Okay.
So I'm very careful in how I read the research and in how I talk to people. My instinct says that whole plant medicine is better. There's no research to prove that.
And I'm here on full spectrum, lots of THC every day.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a reoccurrence. So we're still dealing with the original.
Yeah.
And it hasn't, I mean, it's yeah. I'm a big fan of the full spectrum.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and balance. So just make sure you're balancing out. You're not going full 100% THC all the time, and that's all you're using. Make sure you're balancing
And I'll do more
out.
research for sure.
And maybe with other herbs,
Yeah.
too.
Wendy has a book about this. So
Wow, I would
read
love
her-
to see
Yeah, I
it.
should probably say that. I've been in practice for about 20 years, and I also have a school, and I've been teaching about this for a long time. And I just wrote a book, and it's going to be published next year. And I have the bookmarks here. And any one of you in the listening audience that emails me through my website will get one free question about cannabis therapy. It can be for yourself or others. So I recommend picking up the bookmark. The book is called The Emerald Trinity, Marijuana for the Mind, Body, and Spirit. It definitely covers using marijuana for mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, as well as physical health. It definitely covers how to use marijuana for all the different issues that you want to deal with. There is a DIY make your own medicine chapter. And it is so much cheaper and easier and better to make your own medicine. So, and then there's a lot of my case histories, and I'm not as tied down as an MD. So the MDs have to go by the research, and they don't actually always recommend cannabis in certain ways. Often what they do is they gather their clients' story. Their patients are coming in and telling them what they use cannabis for. And the docs are keeping track of it, but they're not actually, they don't know anything really about herbs or how herbs work. So anyway, so I have that perspective of an herbalist, and so I'm freer to say things like, cannabis kills cancer. You know?
Woo!
It does. It really does.
It does.
So anyway,
Yes.
pick up the book if you want. Yeah. Shameless self-promotion.
That's awesome.
Okay.
She's amazing.
Yes, I want to thank you for being here. And I appreciate your story. And I have had family members that are dealing with cancer, and some don't. Some don't agree with it. Some do. And the ones that do agree with it, we're all doing well. The ones that don't agree with it, they have their ups and downs. And I have something rare called neuropathy with entrapment.
Hold the
I
microphone.
have something rare called neural pain, from head to toe. And if it wasn't for cannabis, I don't know where I would be, because the doctors get confused and they think it's fibromyalgia, but it's not. So
Well,
I'm
I'm
blessed
glad
to
you
be
found-
here, and I understand and respect your liver thing, because I have no gallbladder either. And I think I think it's wonderful that it can help us without a bunch of pills and a bunch of side effects.
Well, thank
That's
you.
the blessing of it all.
And I think you were saying you've had your own health journey with cannabis and your gallbladder.
Yeah. Because
And
they
it's-
didn't even believe something was wrong with it.
I didn't get that.
They didn't even believe something was wrong with it.
Wow. Yeah, and you took a treatment of THC
Yeah, and I found out I had glaucoma, and I'm still seeing.
and glaucoma.
Uh-huh.
Nice. Are you able to talk about that?
I didn't quite hear what's going on.
just appreciating us for being here.
Yeah. Well, what
Yeah.
really makes it important is hearing stories like this and hearing each other's stories and having other people listen to your story. Because if you go through this industry, the chemo radiation industry, the oncology industry, you don't always get listened to, right? And you are your own best healer. You know, the doctors work for you. You have to remember that, and it's hard, but you're the one responsible for getting advice from as many different places as you can, and then putting together a therapy program for yourself. So that's really important. So I
Yep.
appreciate these stories.
And you all are here because something about our story is impacting you, or you are curious and you want to know a little bit more. Well, you know what? Your bud tenders at all of your dispensaries that you can talk to. There's some representation here. Everybody knows somebody in your neighborhood. Z can raise his hand, that have options there that you can make yours at home if you are curious and you haven't yet read her book. Your bud tenders will know more, but your body will know more. Your body will tell you what's working for you. Your body, especially with this product, is going to receive it in the way that helps it and cures it and treats it. We won't call it a cure, treats it. So listen to your own body, but take some recommendations from your local store. Try everything. You know, really try everything. It's out there. Give yourself a chance. You know, even if it's just curious about inflammation, even if it's just, you know, whatever it might be, take a bath bomb, take an edible, whatever it might be. Try everything, but really full spectrum for health.
Take care of yourselves out there.
All right, you guys. Thank you for being here.